Crandall Medical Center at Copeland Oaks remains.
There you are. We don't want to unmute. Mute because
we all have different histories. We come from different places and have had different journeys. Yet it's also true that common values can bind us: love and hope, sharing and giving, and walking toward a shared tomorrow.
We're in this together. Everence's roots are in mutual aid and community expressed as stewardship and generosity.
At Everence, we believe faith and community results in impact. Over our history, we've taken great joy in helping people that serve and minister to others. This includes pastors, as they are often challenged with financial trials because of the nature of their work serving others. Fortunately, some pastors are getting a bit of help. Funded by a grant from the Lilly Endowment, Everence is able to assist eligible pastors facing economic challenges. In 2016, more than 180 received assistance, from subsidies to pay the cost of financial planning, contributions to retirement plans, and easing the burdens of debt. The program also helped more than 240 pastors attend educational events.
We really believe that when churches take care of their pastors and help them with their financial health, those pastors are in an even better place to minister and take care of the congregations that they're serving in.
Just like the power of compound interest, investing in young people today grows into the promise of impact for tomorrow. Since the late 90s, Everence has given more than $450,000 in scholarships to students. There are other opportunities too. Throughout the history of Everence, internships have provided practical experience and skills. These students go on to successful careers, and some even stay to join the Everence team. A shared tomorrow also means thinking of the longest journeys ahead. Kids and their families each year enjoy Youth Savings Week events at Everence Federal Credit Union branches. They get a head start on thinking wisely about money and saving.
It's good to know that after 71 years, Everence is a place where people can go to get help in living out their faith and finances. We look forward to being a part of a growing church and community with folks from all walks of life.
This means the availability of services that can help nearly everyone in the stewardship of their resources. Credit union services, insurance and health plans, investments, and retirement plans provide members the chance to strengthen their tomorrow.
We start with where our members are and develop a plan to meet their goals. And often that means taking care of the communities where they are. That might mean their church and extends to where they live and work.
And when savings can turn into giving, Everence serves as the bridge between people's hearts and the helpful hands of churches and nonprofits.
As I've traveled the country, I've gotten to know some people that are amazing in their generosity. And as we work with them in planning and then execution, some of my most amazing experience has been when folks tell me that they've been able to be more generous than they even expected that they were going to be able to be.
Shared commitment is evident inside our organization as employees work as a team to serve members, whether it's individuals, churches, nonprofits, companies, and faith organizations. Members, staff, and friends also come together to contribute within our communities through chapter and stewardship events, volunteer efforts, training and workshops, advocacy, and everyday ways to build a better future, a shared tomorrow.
Caring for one another is central to the work that we do. And the mission of our organization is to help folks work toward that goal.
For neighborhoods and regions, for our faith communities, and for the world.
Good evening, everyone, and thanks for joining us for our second town hall session here leading up to the 2020 conference, General Conference of the Brethren Church. As we begin tonight, I'm Josh. I'm currently the moderator of the Brethren Church. I'm here with Stephen, our esteemed executive director.
Most people use that word to describe me, esteemed.
We want to welcome all of you who are here for the first time, if you didn't catch our last one, or welcome back those who were here at the previous town hall. Just so you know, we are recording this, so if you ask questions, you're going to be on the recording, just so you know that. Or if you want to refer back to anything later on, you can go to brethrenchurch.org and you'll be able to see the video there. Our purpose tonight is to just kind of work through some of the conference business agenda so that we can talk with you and let you know what to expect there. And we wanted to allow some questions kind of in this setting when it might be easier to ask questions from those of you who are delegates, or really anyone who's logged in here, just so you can gain any clarity that you feel like you need on any of the documents that you've received so far. We are continuing to update documents as we get updates. And then we wanted to let you know kind of the procedure that we'll be using for conference. Also, this is just another chance for us to test our process here on doing this, so that we'll be even better prepared for July 25th. You're the second big test group for us here, so just be patient with us as we continue to work through any issues that you have. If you have issues, there are places to go and people to talk to about that, and Stephen will let you know about that here in a minute.
Yeah, so some instructions for us tonight. If you haven't already, I know Ryan has been putting some of this instruction in your feed, but go ahead and change your name. It can be done. There's some dots up in your top right hand corner. It'll let you bring down, and you're going to rename yourself. Put your first and last name in. So as Ryan is seeing you, and if you have a question, he comes up, he'll be able to know and say your name to us as we're getting ready for your question. Feel free, please leave your microphone turned off until you're asking a question, and you don't have to keep your video on if you don't want to. It's really up to you. Really comes down to your bandwidth in your home and those kind of things. So the video is not necessary. If we are going to ask a question, we will ask you to unmute your microphone and turn your camera back on so we can see you and hear you. So but by muting your mic, it'll keep the phones and the dogs and all the other noise in your home all out of the background while we're talking with each other. If you do have a question, if you at the bottom of your Zoom, there's some toggles, some buttons. You can click on the chat button, and you can actually write in the chat, "I have a question." You write the words, "I have a question," or something along those lines. Ryan will find you. He will make us aware of that question, and he will bring that to us, and we will do it again. We'll unmute your mic. We'll turn on you can turn on your video. And then when you're done asking your question and interacting with us, you can then just turn those things back off again if you do. If you would like the most up-to-date version of the program book, we've been adding a few things here, tweaking some things. We know we've mailed a copy of that to you. You can, in the email you received today, there's a link to the program book. It will download. It will give you the latest version of that. We've been adding some things in there for finances and some different things for that. If you have a general question that's not for Josh or myself, you can actually message there. So there's two participants in your view. One is labeled questions, and one is their name is help. If you would like to talk to Ryan and want to talk to him about a question or have a dialogue with him about a question, you can talk to him. You can private message questions, and you'll be talking with Ryan. If you have a technical aspects and you need some help with what's going on in your Zoom, you can actually talk to Michael Cook. Michael Cook on our staff here. He's the one labeled help, and he'll be able to do that for you and interact with you about your questions. So far, I think we're going to jump into our agenda. I'm going to pray for us before we do that. Pray for our conversations on our dialogues tonight, and then Josh will lead us into our business agenda tonight. So let's pray together. Father, we thank you for this opportunity to be together, and that this technology exists that we can use to our advantage. As brethren, this is not us. We do enjoy getting together, but Father, we thank you that we're able to do this and can continue the business of your church moving forward. And so tonight we ask you for your wisdom, your discernment as we think through and pray through and prayerfully consider the work you have for your church tonight. And we also ask you, as you are moving us forward into our meeting on the 25th, Father, that your peace and your patience and all your wisdom will go with us then as well. So thank you for being with us tonight, that your Spirit is with us, and we ask that you go before us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen.
All right.
So as we begin, we're just going to kind of walk down through some issues that we think would be handy for you to know before the day of conference. So if you have any questions on these, you can feel free to ask us, and we'll answer them to the best of our ability. The first question you might wonder is, how are we going to seat delegates? We've never had to seat delegates when we haven't had an in-person conference before, because we've never had a conference that wasn't in person before. So we've been working with Rex on this. Rex is the elected person who kind of handles conference membership for us and reports to the executive board and general conference on that. And we've been working with Rules and Org actually on a number of issues. And it looks like what we're doing is we're seating delegates just based on the registration from the churches. So if you're a delegate and your church hasn't sent in your information yet, you need to talk to them and make sure that they've sent in your information. We can't this year accept day of registrations. You can't just show up on the feed and say, I'm a delegate, and pay your fees. Your church needs to both send in the information and make sure your delegate fees are paid before that day.
So we have a deadline of July 15th for that.
Yeah.
For being able to do that.
Yeah. So make sure your church gets that in by July 15th. If you have any questions about that, you can call here in the national office. They'd be more than happy to answer any questions on that. But everybody who is registered will be seated automatically as a delegate. Now, obviously, if you're not here and you don't vote, then you're just not here and you don't vote. But you will be seated as a delegate, and that's kind of how that will work. If there are any challenges, we're actually going to be sending out the list of delegates beforehand, which is why we have the deadline beforehand. So as you receive that list of delegates and you look at it and you see somebody's name who you're like, I can't believe they're even a Christian, how could we seat them as a delegate? Right. You can message me at moderator@brotherandchurch.com and
.org.
.org. Sorry. Yeah.
I'm not sure brotherandchurch.com where that goes. So let's go to .org.
Let's go to .org. Moderator@brotherandchurch.org. And we'll make sure that we handle that challenge appropriately. I don't think there's been a challenge in my time in the Brethren Church. So
I'm sure it's happened somewhere, but it's not been when I've been around.
It has happened before. It's just been a number of years.
It's been a number of years. Right.
So we will make sure that you have a chance, though, to challenge those, and we will handle those as they come in. So if you have any questions about that, we're going to kind of keep rolling through the program. So it may take you a minute to get your question in. So we know that we're going to go on to other things. Just let Ryan know that you have a question, and we will come back and make sure that we pick it up.
And we will, at the end, come back and say, hey, is there any questions about any of the things we talked about?
Yeah.
So we're not going to rush past it and you don't have a chance. So if you do have a question, let us know.
Yep. So that's how seating of delegates will work. The second thing that we wanted to talk about was we are the executive board this last year, based on really one specific meeting, but really a number of conversations that have been had over this past year, have just run into an issue where we have a process in our denomination where there's just a lot of angst and uneasiness. People aren't super happy about what's going on, and nobody's super mad, but everybody, not everybody, almost everybody seems to think that there could be some major improvements to this process, and that's our process of ordination. Now, we have a great MBO who does really good work. They're very capable. They do exactly what we ask them to. So this isn't necessarily saying, oh, we're falling down on the job, we're not doing what we're supposed to, but this is really a question about what should we be asking them to do? What should the process of ordination look like for us as the Brethren Church? And the process that we're using now is put together a number of years ago and tweaked a little bit here and there. And it was put together by very capable, very intelligent people, much smarter than me. But right now, as we're having conversations with people, we're starting to hear questions about, does this really fit who we are right now? Does this fit who we think the Brethren Church is and should be? So as we were talking about that, we thought as an executive board, really we need to put together a group that could look into this and make some recommendations. So as we were doing that, we were actually having that conversation in an executive board meeting. At the same time, we're having that conversation in the midst of it, kind of. Stephen actually gets a text, I think it was a text.
From Jason,
from Jason Barnhart, who was in the midst of a meeting with the leadership of NABC, which, for those of you who don't know, that's our National Association of Brethren Church Elders. That's the group of men and women who have been ordained. It's kind of a professional group. And their leadership at the same time was talking about this idea of ordination. And is the process that we have the right process for us, especially right now at this point in history. So when crazy things like that happen, we think that often God is involved in the midst of that. And we had a conversation. They Skyped or zoomed in to our call, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah, zoomed in sounds way cooler than Skyped in.
It does. It does.
And we had a discussion, and we decided that the two groups were going to partner together to put together a task force that would look into this question of how should we be doing ordination? What are the changes that we should make? We don't really foresee a wholesale burn everything down, rebuild from scratch type of thing, but we do see that there are probably some changes that we need to make, and we haven't really taken time to seriously consider them really at this level for a number of years now. So we wanted a group specifically to do that. So the executive board has the authority on their own to go ahead and appoint a task force to do that. That's given to us in the manual procedure. But we thought that this was such an important thing that we wanted the affirmation of conference to look into this issue, so that when that task force brings a recommendation to the executive board and eventually to the floor of conference in the future, that it would be a recommendation that you asked for, that you as general conference specifically put this group to the task of. So you'll be seeing something on your ballot, and you've seen some information already that went out in the packet.
Yeah, so page 25 or 26, depending on what version of the packet you have, you can find that proposal written there.
Yeah. So as we move into that, we wanted to make sure that if you had any questions about that, that you had a chance to ask those tonight. So if you do have any question, again, we're not making any proposals of what we should change. We're just saying that we want a task force that does look into that so that they can make proposals. And it will move as swiftly as General Conference moves on any issue of this size.
Yes.
So
yes. I know that we will want to, in the 12 months we have between 2020 and 21, we will work diligently to be able to get at least something back to the conference before the next year. We don't want it to be, hey, in 22 or 23, we're getting our first thing around to conference. We really do want to.
Yeah, we're hoping this isn't a 7-year process.
Not a 7-year process.
Which
although we
can happen at times.
And we've done that before. So
yes.
We will do our best to move this forward as quickly as we can, but also diligently, not just to burn through it really quick. So
right.
If you have any questions about this, you're welcome to ask those. And again, you can put in there that you have a question, and Ryan will let you know that you were up next. Does it look like we have any questions about this so far, the last two topics? So Josh, are you good moving on to the next?
Yeah, let's go.
Okay,
go ahead.
All right.
We also wanted to give a chance for kind of some extended time to ask questions about the budget and our financial presentation. So I'm going to let Stephen, and Jim is on the call here. Jim, who has done just a spectacular job for us, especially this last year, but has always done a good job for us as long as he's been with us. They can walk through this, and then you can ask any questions that you have.
So we'll tackle the 19 financials. The 2019 financials first. On page 13, it starts those documents, and those documents start with a small narrative about the 2019 finances. And frankly, there's one significant thing about the 2019 finances that we want to bring to your attention, and it's the work that we've been doing on the revolving loan fund. The revolving loan fund is a fund that the Brethren churches had since the 1950s, roughly the 1950s. That fund was used to be able to loan money to churches and to different groups in the Brethren Church for ministry. And then obviously the money's paid back, and we just kind of keeps going in a revolving loan fund, as it is called. And so in 2016, we had to make some decisions about that as a board to close the fund just for some regulatory reasons. And when we did that and begin to do that, there is some work in 2019 that shows it looks like, if you look like the 2019 actuals, there's a really large loss in 2019. And that's because of the way the 2019 financials on the revolving loan fund has played out. So Jim, if you are on the call, and I'll have Ryan kind of bring you forward there a little bit so everybody sees you. Can you just start there with that part of the discussion before we get into the actual numbers, and just talk a little bit about why the number's there, why is there a large hole there, and what has happened between the two organizations, the Missionary Board, which holds the revolving loan fund, and the Brethren Church and its finances.
At the previous town hall, we mentioned that this is out of the most complex accounting class I had at Bowling Green State University.
Right.
So we're trying in one page and in just a few minutes try to explain to you some difficult concepts. But the main underlying fact is that the revolving loan fund did not have cash, or it would have paid its own debts. And because of the sale of the building, there is some cash in the Brethren Church. And also because of the close of the district, some notes were canceled. What I'll use the Garber Brethren loan as an example to try to get this through. The Garber had loaned $100,000 roughly to the revolving loan fund. They came to the national office and said, if the national office will pay us over 14 years, we won't get asked for the money from the revolving loan fund. So now the national office has a $100,000 debt, but no cash. The revolving loan fund no longer owes that money, and its cash didn't change. So there is income on the side of the revolving loan fund and an expense on the side of the national office. A similar thing happened when we used the $100,000 payment from the sale of the national office building that was received by the national office to pay off debts that were debts of the revolving loan fund. It gets even more complicated when the districts say, don't pay us back out of the revolving loan fund, but we want the money to be used by the Brethren Church for a specific purpose within a specific region. So now the national office has money that's designated for a purpose, but no cash to offset that. So it comes out of our unrestricted funds because we now have this designation. If you look at the two financial statements, the amount that's income on revolving loan fund is roughly the amount of expense on the national office. And it's pretty much paper shuffling to restructure and clear out the revolving loan fund in the long run.
So Jim, as I'm listening to you talk, so there's two organizations, the Missionary Board, which is houses the revolving loan fund, and then there's the Brethren Church. And as we're closing down the revolving loan fund, because we're picking up things and moving them over here, some debts that are owed, but because we can't bring the cash with us, we're really just putting the debt over there and leaving the cash over here so that the revolving fund can pay off its debts. And so therefore, we're just basically moving big holes over here to help us close this fund completely down, which we do have a goal of closing that fund. Our plan is by the end of 21, the fund will be, the fund will no longer owe churches any more money because there's only churches left in the fund or organizations left in the fund. And when we do that, really the only thing that's left are assets. The money that the revolving loan fund is loaned out is all that will be left, because there will be three of those, I think, 2 or 3 of those left. So really, we're scooping up big holes and putting them in the Brethren Church side too, because districts have directed us to do that. We've taken that on, so it causes the Brethren Church to show that it's had a big hole in it in 2019. Would that be a layman's understanding of what you just said?
Yes.
Okay. So that's caused. So if you look at then the major, got to get to the right page. If you look at page 17, it's 2019. It is the fund activity for the Brethren Church. If you look at the 1, 2, 3, fourth line down, says RLF debt assumption. That's a roughly $400,000 of debt assumption there by the Brethren Church on behalf of the revolving fund. And that same number would be, similar number would be represented on the fund side for the revolving fund. Correct?
It's the 300,000.
It's the $300,000. Oh, the
The
332.
far right-hand
Yeah.
column.
Yeah, the 332. I forgot about the other transfer there. Yeah. So that is, again, as we said last time, the hardest class that Jim ever took in accounting that Josh and I have never taken, nor should we ever be qualified as accountants. It's not difficult to understand. Excuse me. It's difficult to understand, and we're trying our best. But at the end of the day, the Brethren Church in 2019 did not take a $300,000 loss from a practical understanding. Would that be true?
Yes.
Okay.
It's just a restructuring of debt.
Just a restructuring of our debt for 2019. So if you look at page 13, 14, 15, 16, and 17, those are the 2019 financials. You have the operating expenses, the statement of our condition, which is kind of the talking about, it does not include the revolving fund. And then page 16 is the actual sheet there for the revolving fund. Before we move off of 2019, Jim, anything else about 19 you want to say before we go to any questions that people may have about 2019?
My years are running together already, and I've only been here 2.5 years. But I believe this is the first time we've gone out with this format.
Yeah, I believe you're right.
We're trying to show how each of the funds where there's designated money, where we're restricted from using it for any purpose except one particular purpose. So we're trying to give a bigger picture to the general body. Going back several years, there mainly the operating fund was shown and presented, but that left out half of the activity of the organization, of the national office. So we're trying to give it all, trying to show that we're honoring each and every designation of money,
right,
and how we're spending it.
Right. So if anybody has any questions about these particular documents about 2019, we'll entertain those questions now that you might have. Again, you can come back around and ask those questions. And if you really want to dig in and try to understand what's going on between the revolving fund and the Brethren Church funds, Jim would be happy to have this conversation with you, and could definitely take that offline. We can let you know how to get a hold of him and be able to do that. You can call the office and we make sure you connect with him if you have further questions. Josh, anything from you on 2019 you'd like to reiterate?
No, I'm happy that we continue to move along in our plans to clean up the revolving loan fund. And as someone who's been involved with that for a number of years now, I will be pleased when we have completed the life of this fund that, let us not forget, has done many amazing things for the Brethren Church, for the spread of the gospel across this country.
Absolutely. That's true. Okay. So just like we have no questions for 2019, we did include, we did include the 2020 a revised budget in the document there. We only have that there for reference. There's nothing for us to go over tonight about that. But if you want to look at 19 compared to 20 compared to 21, the 2020 budget revised, just the overall budget there, is in the documents for you. It's in the new latest version of the program book, and it's on page 18. So if you want to be able to compare the three together, we have added that document to the program book. So we're going to then jump to the 2021 budget and dig into the budget narrative there. So if you're looking at page 19 and 20, or maybe it was 18 and 19 if you have the older version of the program book there in front of you tonight, we understood, we started the budget process. We started the budget process late in the year of 19 for the 21 budget. We start talking to our regions, start asking them about what it is that they're working on, and we start the project there. And so we're way ahead of 21 when we start the budget process. So you can imagine 2020, we bring a first preliminary to the board, in the January meeting. By the March meeting, we're trying to really refine our numbers down so that by the May meeting, we can approve so that you can then publish that information for the conference before the July conference. We had COVID in March. So if I remember right, our March meeting, we went online because of COVID.
Yeah, it was like right at the front.
Right at the front end of that. So in that conversation, we started thinking through, and Jim and myself brought a proposal to the board of, instead of trying to see if we can figure out and predict what 21 is going to be like, which I think we would all agree would be a very difficult thing to do. What if we brought some contingencies to the board for their approval, so that if we're starting to have to cut 21 because the budget isn't, or the finances aren't able to support the budget, we would get that approved. So that's what the board has done. So we brought that to you. So if you're looking at page 19 or 20 of their 21 budget narrative, it's the very last part of the overall budget narrative. We put there in that list about $244,000 worth of if in order, on purpose. So their priority order of what we could cut if necessary to begin to bring 21 into some kind of control if the finances aren't there to support it because of COVID and all the different things like that. So that's the biggest thing we wanted to point out to you about the 21 budget. It is year over year about $90,000 less than the 20 budget. So the 20 budget is about, overall budget's about $90,000 more than the proposed 21 budget. And that was true starting in January.
Yeah.
So we were already working on that, trying to tweak a realistic budget. We've been working on that for several years, trying to control our understanding of where our finances are. And so we already had done that. And so the year over year, the budget's already lower. And then we're bringing another set of potential cuts, if necessary, for the floor of conference, so they understand, yeah, they're approving a budget that may not be a real hard slash because of, we can't really predict 21, but we have a plan if we need to do that kind of work. So anything before I jump to Jim here on that? You're good?
No, I think that's good.
Jim, anything about 21 you want to point out to the people listening tonight?
No, you covered the main thing.
Okay, great. So again, if you're looking at page 21, 22, and I think 23, you'll see the full budget there. You got the main funds, and then the operating, and then the regional dollars there are broken out in that as well. Something that I would point out too about one of the things that the board has challenged us on is in the church planting area, a challenge of getting our budget up to $200,000 in spending in church planting. And this year we're at 90. So our goal is to continue to raise that dollar amount up until we can get to the $200,000 mark on our spending in church planting. So that's a priority. Church planting and vitality, those two things are really priorities that we want to highlight there. And so we'll be working on that through the rest of this year and then the starting of the 21 budget. So you can read the narrative there for yourself. Yes, sir, Jim.
The 90,000 is in the overall budget, but there is another 55,500 for church planning.
Thank you.
Within the region budget.
Yes, thank you. I don't have that page in front of me, so that was a mistake. Thank you very much for bringing. So what's that add up to? $145,000. $145,000. I can do math in my head quickly. I just can't predict what's on the page when I don't have it in front of me. So great, thank you, Jim, for helping us see that. Ryan keeps telling us that nobody's asking questions tonight. We are just doing such a stellar job of talking.
It is important to mention the regional budgets. This is the second year people are seeing regional budgets in their conference books. So check those out. It's still a work in progress.
Yeah.
I think we were much better this year than we were last year in the process of putting this together, but it's regions have to be even ahead of where we are nationally and getting stuff turned in because of how everything falls.
Right.
So we're continuing to work out that process. But if you're on a regional leadership team and you're watching this, I want to say thank you for the hard work that you guys are doing, really putting some flesh on the skeleton of regionalization as we start to more and more live into that.
That's fantastic. Yes, Ryan, you have a question for us.
Yes, we have a question from Don Lehman for you guys.
All right.
Go ahead, Don.
Hi, Don.
So question is, I understand there were some COVID grants or loans gotten. Where will those be reflected in the budget? And did regions get that, or did that just go to the office?
So the funds that we were raising are not reflected in the 21 budget. Those dollars would be on the 20 actual. Whenever the dollars are reported next year, you would see that on the 20 actual. But the funds go into a designated fund. It's labeled Brethren Relief, and those dollars go into that fund. That when you have a designated fund, those funds can only be spent for that designation. And so the funds came to the national office, and then we have granted out, and if Ron was here, he could give you an exact amount, but I believe we've had about 14 grants approved with roughly $20,000 to $25,000 of those dollars given out already. And what you will see is you'll see that reflected on the 20 actual, because those dollars were received in the 20 year. They would not be reflected on a 21, unless, of course, they carried over. If there were funds that carried over, then you would see them carried over onto the 21 actual is where you would see them.
So we'll see that on the 2020 actual budget then.
Correct. You would see that. Yes, sir.
So,
thank you.
Don, were you asking about, we have some funds to help churches. There's also the PPP from the government grant. Were you asking the grant that we received or the grants?
Well, I just, grants received and given out. I just know some churches were struggling a little with how to show those funds as far as income and then how they were put out. And I was wondering how the national office did that.
Well, that's fantastic. And Jim should answer that question and not me and you. So Jim, please, if you talk a little bit about the PPP money that we received and how we're going to reflect that.
Before I get into that, on the money that's been collected by the national office to make grants to churches and organizations around the world, we've received through June 30th over 26,000 and sent out almost 16.
Okay.
So there's another 10,000 that can be distributed. We did receive $93,000 grant from through the PPP program. Currently, we are showing that as a loan because we haven't applied for forgiveness. Once that
makes sense.
Once the forgiveness occurs, it would be moved from a loan into income as grant income.
And a reminder, the PPP is specifically for payroll. So that's what that money is getting used for on that side.
Right. And that would then still be reported on the 20 actual numbers. So when we give out the church the 20 actual, that would be where both the grant for COVID and the PPP dollars would be reflected on that document.
Okay.
Correct?
It would more than likely, it'll be a loan on our books at the end of 2020 because we don't apply for forgiveness until November.
Okay. Yeah.
November,
Okay.
December.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Makes sense. Okay.
So
Don, any other questions you have, sir? Yes, sir. Go ahead.
It might show up in the next budget just because of some rollover.
Correct.
Across the timeline. Okay.
Yes, sir. That makes sense. Yeah.
All right. Thank
Any
you.
other questions? Yes, sir. Ryan, any other ones there? Okay. So, so the 21 budget there, the proposal, we will be asking for your vote on that. And so that will be on our ballot, our digital ballot as we do that. So,
just something to mention, as Don was talking, if you're a church accountant or you're on a church board and you don't know how to reflect, you receive some PPP money and you don't know how to reflect that, I am volunteering Jim's services to help you out. Call into the offices here, and they can direct you to Jim because you don't want Stephen's help on this. You want Jim's help on this.
Yes, absolutely true.
He can help you out how to make that work in your books.
Yeah, I don't need to help them.
Yeah,
I can add, but I'm not an accountant. I'm sorry. Did Jim have something again? No. Okay. All right. Great. So I think we're then wrapped up our finances. Again, if you have something come in and you think about it at the end here, you're welcome to ask our questions. So we'll let Josh go on to our next topic.
All right. So our next topic is going to be our elections, specifically the elections of people to positions. You should, those of you who have received your packets, you'll see in your packets there is everybody that has been nominated, and I think we have pictures for everybody.
We do.
Even
We have
in
a
short bio.
I think a couple of people are on there twice, but their picture's only on there once. But
Okay.
yes, everybody's on there.
So you can read a little bit about them. As we stand right now, there is not an excess of people. So
Correct.
everyone on the ballot right now, unless we receive any more nominations between now and conference or from the floor of conference, everyone on that ballot would be elected. We are still looking for, specifically looking for a layman for the nominating committee. Nominating committee does a great job. Ron Burns has been heading that up for us for a number of years now. And always does a wonderful job on that. But of course, the one committee that is always seems like the hardest to fill is the nominating committee. So if you feel like you are someone who has some connections around the nomination, or even just you wouldn't mind calling people, like if Ron gives you some names, you could call them and ask them if they'd be okay running for something. And you want to do that, please let us know. We would love to have you be a part of that committee and to help out with contacting and finding people to fill those positions. But for everything else, we have at least one person nominated, and specifically one person nominated.
Yeah.
Now, we do have, for the executive board, there are 3 nominees. Typically, there are only 2 spots open per year on the executive board, but we do have one executive board member that is opting out early. She had a work change and just can't make it work out with her schedule. So there are actually 3 positions that are open this year. So what we're going to ask people to do on the day of conference is you're actually going to need to vote on that. And you will, there's a ranking system on the voting. You'll get a link, you'll go to the page, and you'll see the 3 names, and you'll put in 1, 2, 3, and it tells you at the top what the top is. I think it's 1 is your first choice, 2 is your second choice. And then the person who gets the lowest votes there, the lowest cumulative score,
the lowest ranking,
yeah,
will be the third person.
Yeah, and they will fulfill then the unexpired term that is being fulfilled, and the other 2 people will fill a full 3-year term on the executive board.
And that term is an extra year. There's 1 more year on that term.
Yeah,
and that person will be eligible to run again for 2 full terms. They can do that and still be that extra year that they would have under the belt if they chose to.
Yeah. So if you're dying for 7 years, that's the way you can do that.
That's the spot to go. Yes, Ryan, you have a question for us.
Yeah, Drew Mazier has a question for you guys. Drew, go ahead.
Hey, Drew.
Yeah, who are the people coming off the executive board?
So the people whose full terms are expiring are John Swope and
Mallory Lafla.
All right.
Is that helpful? That we try not to say her last name right?
Yeah, that's what I was trying for.
Good.
And then Tracy McPherson is the one who has to step away early. They've all done a great job for us. I've been very pleased to serve with them, and it has been a highly effective executive board these past couple of years that I've been on it. But for various reasons, all of them have decided that they did not want to rerun again. So that's we have 3 new people who all were crazy enough to say yes. To what they felt God was doing in their lives and moving them onto the executive board.
Yeah. Any other thing, Josh? Excuse me, Drew? No? Thank you. Okay. No other questions then? Let's talk a little bit about voting then.
Yeah. You're probably better.
So this year we will be doing a digital vote. We will be, you will receive an email in your email that you have designated to us when your delegate form was turned in by your church. Your email, most likely the one you received tonight for this call, that will have an email from our voting service, and you will click a link, and then that link will take you to the ballot. And there will be a place for you to click on that ballot, and then you can vote. You'll probably get the email on the front end of the meeting, but it will not actually have the live ballot. until we get through the business, because our goal is to be able to change the ballot as we go. If there's been some amendments to the motions that we have or anything like that, we'll be working on that in real time. And as soon as we're ready, and we will give ourselves some time to be able to vote, probably about 15 minutes or so, we will make that link live. And as soon as it's live, you'll be able to, you click on it and it'll be there, and you will work your way through it. Most of the votes are just simply either a yes, no, or a check the box for people, except for the delegates. We will be asking you, the board members, we will be asking you to rank them in that process. It is one email, one vote. So if you or someone in your congregation is a delegate and they have decided they're going to just use their spouse's email, and there will only be one vote from those two people, even if you've shared the same email address. We've worked really hard to keep that from happening, but if somehow it slides through, you will only get one vote. So if you click on it and then you hit done, and then your spouse clicks on it, there's not another, it's done. So it will be only your one email, one vote for you to be able to do that. So we got some issues with people sharing screens and all those kind of things. So there won't be a way for us to be able to take votes kind of live or raising hands or anything that Zoom allows us to do. They will be handled on the ballot that we send out to you. Yeah. So still no questions about that. That's great.
Yeah, we're doing good.
Right.
One more thing we need to cover on the agenda, and that's there is currently a motion that is set to come off of the table during conference this year. And it's a motion that, paraphrasing, that for executive board members, it was moved that we make a requirement of some kind that either the executive board member or their church must give financially to the denomination for them to have a seat on the executive board. We talked about this a lot last year. If you were with us last year for conference, devoted actually almost a whole extra session to this issue, and we just could not come to consensus. So coming into this year, as executive board was looking at this, we talked about this issue as we promised conference that we would. And we actually had some, I think, creative solutions that came up for this. But we decided that for an issue where we couldn't come to consensus last year, to try and do that in the format that we're going to use for conference this year just wasn't going to be the best way to do that. That it felt like this was a discussion that we needed to have as a family in person, where we could look each other in the eye and kind of wrestle through some of the issues here. So we can report that last year we ran a check just to check, and all of our board members were financial givers
That's
to
right.
the denomination.
That's right.
So we're already kind of practicing this, even though it's not required. But as we looked at bringing it up this year at conference, we decided what we're actually going to do is there will be somebody who motions that we retable this, and somebody who seconds that motion that we retable this for another year to discuss it again when we can be together in person, hopefully at the 2021 General Conference.
Right. And so that will be there. That'll be prepped. There will be discussion, but our goal then is to kindly ask us to retable that so that we can actually have a good brethren discussion, which is a face-to-face discussion about this topic, which is the right thing, I think.
Yeah. And we're really not trying to kick it down the road. As I said,
right.
it really practically doesn't have any effect on any of our current board members because we're already givers. Right. But we really did feel like we needed to have this in person. So we will give time for discussion, but we would encourage you that if you really want to talk about this, let's wait until we can be with each other in person to do that.
Correct.
We would also, we're encouraging kind of the same thing on any new business that you might have. If you have something that you just feel is a crisis, we need to handle it right now. We will take time to accept those things from the floor. If you know that ahead of time, I would love to hear that before. That would help us out a lot. But really, we're trying to say anything that we can push another year so that we can be in person to kind of talk through some complicated issues. There are some changes that the Polity Committee has recommended that we make to kind of our structure, how we do things, that we're going to go ahead and push till next year. We're just asking people to kind of be wise about what needs handled right now and what really can wait until we can talk through things and come to. It's much easier to come to consensus when you're together than when you're just online. When you're online, it just feels very impersonal and can almost feel like the only thing that matters is the vote, which is not what consensus is all about, and that's a very dearly held idea for us.
Right. And so if you have something and you believe you want to talk about it, we recommend highly that you go ahead and contact Josh. Again, it's moderator@brethrenchurch.org. He would love to get on a call with you, talk through that topic with you, so that if he believes it needs to be brought to the board and it needs to be really added on, we trust that he's going to listen through that with you and be able to bring that to the team. And hopefully, it will not be so critical or so, monumental that we're struggling through something, we can actually push it and wait on it. So. So and just the last couple of things then before we kind of get to our closing, make sure if you have questions, please jump in now. Again, on the voting stuff, again, individual devices, if you're on a computer, if you're going to share it, if you're going to share a computer, completely fine. Totally understand. But you will need to be able to log in. If you're just going to use one machine, you'll need to be able to log into two people's email addresses at different times to be able to vote. We're going to give a good long window during the voting time of about 15 minutes on that. So you need to be able to do that, be able to know how to do that, and work your way through that. Really, we're on the delegates this year. This really is asking our delegates to be tech savvy. We know that. We understand that. We know that that's a change. It will be a change for some of you and some of your congregations. But if you have people that are delegates that they've decided they really can't do this, let's go ahead and get in contact with your church now. Go ahead and get some changes to your delegates. It's still time to do that. And we'll be able to get some people that can handle the tech side of this. And we want to be able to support everybody in this process as best we can, as we really are doing something brand new for us, because the times have asked us to be able to do that. So we ask that if you have done that, we already have had a couple of churches call in and change their delegates for that very reason, that they just understood that the people that got selected were unable to be able to perform the duties that their church would need for them to be able to perform. So if you need to do that, let us know. Michael at the front desk here in our office will be happy to talk that through with you and work that with you and get those delegates fixed. So with that, I believe that closes up our agenda for tonight. As far as we have some closing comments for you, but if you do have any questions, now would be the time for that. Ryan is telling us no, that there doesn't seem to be any questions. That's great. So let's talk a little bit about our schedule for the 25th, July the 25th.
Yeah, so the 25th is a Saturday. So hopefully this has actually opened up the opportunity for people who wouldn't normally be able to be at conference, wouldn't normally be able to be a part, to be able to take part. There's a good chance that we will actually have more delegates this year than we have had for a very long time, at least. If
could possibly be true. I think that's right.
So we're excited about the fact that more people are going to be able to participate. We will start at 2 p.m. sharply on the 25th. We're hoping to run between 2.5 hours. So really, when you think of time frame for this, think of this whole day as more of just a business session. And there'll be some other things that we're throwing in there because we think we can move through the business pretty quickly in this format. But yeah, so plan on July 25th starting at 2. You'll want to log on before that. You want to make sure that things are up and running. So don't wait until 2 o'clock and then turn your computer on and then find out that something's not working right and it takes you another 20 minutes to get online. Get online before that. You can log in before that.
Because Windows will send out an update on the 24th of July.
That is how
so
that
that
works.
People turn on their computers. It will automatically have to do an update.
Yes.
So please turn on your computers 15, 20 minutes early to be able to do that. We are going to have some reporting. So it won't be just business. There will be some videos. There will be a little bit of worship and some things like that. But really, it will be a lot of the agenda that we work on. So some people have been calling in asking about the agenda. When's the lunch break? When's the speaker and all that. We're not running that. We're not running a full-blown conference here. We really are handling several of our reportings via video, some different things like that, but we are handling the business live, and that really will compartmentalize hopefully in about 2.5 hours.
Yeah, the tough thing is going to be on the West Coast where you're going to start at 11, go to 1 o'clock. It's a weird lunch thing.
Yeah.
You can go eat while Steven's talking.
Absolutely. Just bring a sandwich. Nobody can see you. You can mute your camera. It'll be fantastic. It'll be fine.
Yeah.
So yeah, so that's the things that we have. Thank you for attending this evening. We really appreciate you being here with us tonight and being able to be a part of this process. We do have one more event next weekend where we're helping anyone with technology. We're hoping we don't need to do that, but we're going to have it on because we will be able to help anybody who has questions about the platform, about the voting, or anything like that. There are already some videos and some how-tos on our website to be able to help you answer those questions and be able to dig through this information on your own. But there will be that opportunity for that. One last call, Ryan. No questions. We are good.
So for the one next week, if you're a church leader, let me encourage you, if you have people in your church who you think are going to struggle with the technology, make sure that they check out the videos online. And if they still feel like they need help, make sure that they connect next week for that.
Absolutely. So we'll be sending out information for that, and you will see that in your email. So other than that, we really thank you all for being here tonight, and we will see you on the 25th of July. God bless you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.